we should get a pullback towards some point over here and continue going up further to form the fifth wave of the structure and complete the overall structure for Decentraland. So as you have just seen, mana price is following the exact correction that I predicted 3 months ago. But the question remains, are we going to continue correcting, or is it done for mana and we shall continue the uptrend? These are the possibilities that we'll discover today, so watch till the end. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is King, your host, and as always, today's video is for educational purposes only. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back, and if it's your first time in the channel and you happen to enjoy my videos, then please make sure to subscribe and hit the like button because it really helps a growing channel like mine. Now let's go and look at the chart. Now before we start, I would recommend that you guys watch the previous video of Decentraland, because there I explained the structure in details and I will not be talking about the structure today. So it's important that you understand the structure that the price is forming before going into the details about the current correction that we're having. So I will leave for you a link in the description box and you can click here to go and see that video before watching this one. Now I'll be starting with the higher time frames because I can totally see an extended correction for mana. In other words, the correction is not yet finished. The main reason behind this is that the price is already exhausted in the higher time frames and did not get enough breathing space. The monthly chart shows the price in the overbought area and did not exit this area yet since September of last year. And if we move to the weekly chart is already outside the overbought area. However, it has been in the overbought area 3 times in a row, and it needs to get oversold at least once before continuing up. Now, could it go for a 4th time to the overbought area? Yes, of course it could do that. But will it actually do it? Now, the only thing I can tell you right now is that we don't yet have signs of this correction being complete. So the price is still heading down, and with the price heading down, the line of the oscillator should still be heading down. The information I just said goes out mainly to the long-term holders of mana, because the long-term holding depends mainly on the higher time frames. Now let's move to the daily chart and look at the possible scenarios that could play out next for this correction over here. There are 2 scenarios that I'm looking at for mana that could play out around this area. And I will start with the highly likely scenario and then move on to the one that has lesser chances of happening. The first scenario is suggesting that the current correction, or correction number 2 of the bigger structure, is identical to the previous correction, or correction number 1 of the bigger structure. Now the reason I'm saying that this scenario is highly likely because I can see a lot of similarities between this scenario here and the previous correction that we had earlier last year. So I will start by breaking down this first correction and then comparing this correction to the current correction that we have. On the first correction, we had an upside consolidation on the top, and then we had a drop down at this point. I'll change the colors later. And then we had a pullback on the way down, and then we had a second drop down. So let's change this one into red color and this one into red color as well, so that we can differentiate both of them. Now it's important to notice here that by the time the last piece of this pullback was complete, the price has already reached the lowest point at the overall correction. Now if we come to the second correction, or the current one, we can see the same exact pieces that we had at this point. So first of all, we had a consolidation here at the top. Let's change this to green color. And then we had a drop down, then we had a small pullback, and then we had another drop down. And if you look at it with a quick look, you can see that both corrections are almost identical. So if this one is copying this one as it is, this will likely be the lowest point that the price saw. Now what I can't see on this second correction is the sideways consolidation that we had in the first correction, which is this one here. But I'm starting to see a similar movement at this point, similar to what we had in the sideways consolidation. So after this pullback was complete here, the price made an initial impulse up, and this impulse broke outside the trend line of the correction, which was this one, and that announced the end of this piece. Now if we take a trend line on the current correction, we can see that this trend line was already broken when we had this initial impulse up. And after this impulse, we started seeing a pullback to the downside, which we are seeing something similar right now in the current correction. So the bottom line is, it's important now to watch out for the second correction and how it's going to play out going forward, because this will help you decide your next moves. So if you keep on seeing a similar movement to what we had at this point here, then most likely these two corrections are identical, and at some point here we're going to take off. So for example, if we copy the pattern that comes after and we apply it to the current structure that we have, we can clearly see that if the same scenario plays out here at this point, we'll see the price moves up from this point, forms a higher high, higher than the previous one, similar to what we had here, and then pulls back to retest the trend line twice, which seems to be the case if the same scenario plays out. And then at some point here, the price takes off again. And with this now, the first scenario analysis are over. So let's take away everything and move to the next scenario that I'm expecting. On the second scenario, I'm assuming that this correction did not reach its lowest yet, and it's going to be a 3-wave correction, of which we have already 2 waves that are complete. So we need to see a 3rd wave going down in order to complete this correction. And here is how is that going to play out. If we assume that these 3 pieces here in the center are the second wave of the 3-wave correction, which is running corrective flat. So basically the corrective pattern is going to be, this will be A, the first wave of the correction, this will be B, and C needs to extend towards this level here. And it can even go lower than this, but it definitely has to break below the trend line. And I'm telling you, if this scenario happens, it's definitely going to be a big and strong move to the downside. However, I'm telling you that this scenario is the one that's highly unlikely, but it is still possible. Now, the most important thing about this scenario is going to be the confirmation point, and that point would be right here. So we can confirm this scenario happening only if the price breaks below the trend line. So watch for the price movement, and if you see a strong downwards movement towards the trend line and then a breakout below the trend line with a strong momentum, then this scenario is the one that's going to occur. So keep this one in mind and keep on hoping that this is not the one that's going to happen. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. This was it for Decentraland, guys. And until next time, stay safe and see you later.